It was March 13th, 1998, a mild Friday in Curitiba. Parana, the thermometers read Vindapuzzi, and a light drizzle fell over the capital of Parana when 8-year-old Mariana Rodriguez disappeared without a trace. The only daughter of Roberto and Elisa Rodriguez, Mariana was described by everyone as a cheerful, communicative child with an easy smile. She was in the third year of elementary school at Colegio Santa Maria, a traditional institution in the Alto de 15 neighborhood. That afternoon, as usual, 37-year-old accountant Roberto Rodriguez went to pick up his daughter from school. He arrived at 5:30 p.m., 5 minutes earlier than usual, and parked his blue GOL on Padre Anquita Street, about 30 meters from the main gate. While waiting, Roberto exchanged a few words with other parents who were also waiting for their children, a routine that repeated itself every day. At 5:45 p.m., the bell rang, and dozens of children began to leave through the school gates. Roberto waited, as he always did, in the same place, clearly visible to Mariana. 5, 10, 15 minutes passed. Most of the children had already left, but there was still no sign of Mariana. Concerned, Roberto went into the school and looked for the educational coordinator, Lucia Mendez. Mariana left with the other children, Mr. Rodriguez. I myself saw her pass through the gate, Lucia stated confidently. The school security camera, positioned at the main entrance, confirmed the information. At 5:47 p.m., Mariana was seen leaving the school wearing her uniform, navy blue pants, a white t-shirt with a school emblem, and a pink backpack with unicorn designs. The route Mariana was supposed to take was short, only 30 meters to her father's car. Under normal circumstances, it would not have taken more than 30 seconds. But somehow, within those few meters and in less than a minute, Mariana Rodriguez vanished without a trace. The following hours were filled with despair. Roberto and school staff searched every centimeter of the block. They entered all the nearby stores, asked every passerby. Elisa, Mariana's mother, immediately rushed to the scene after receiving her husband's call. At 7:10 p.m., the couple officially reported the disappearance to the Curitiba Police Department for the Protection of Children and Adolescents. The news spread quickly. That same night, neighbors, relatives, and volunteers organized the first searches in the nearby neighborhoods. The school sent out notices to all parents. On Saturday, March 14th, the case was already on the front pages of Parana's main newspapers. Girl disappears after leaving school in Alto de 15. If you want to follow more cases like this, cases that shake society and reveal hidden truths, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any investigation. The official investigation began immediately after the disappearance was reported. Police Chief Carlos Mendonça, then head of the Department for Protection of Children and Adolescents, personally took charge of the case. The first 48 hours of a missing persons investigation are crucial, and the police mobilized all available resources. The security cameras in the area were thoroughly analyzed. The only one that recorded Mariana was the school's own camera, showing her leaving at 5:47 p.m. Surprisingly, the cameras from a lottery shop and a pharmacy located on the same street did not capture the girl passing by. It was as if Mariana had vanished into thin air within those 30 meters between the school gate and her father's car. It's as if she had been swallowed by the earth. Chief Mendonça declared at a press conference on March 16th, "We are working with all possible hypotheses. 3 main lines of investigation were established: kidnapping for ransom, kidnapping for illegal adoption or human trafficking, and the possibility that Mariana had run away voluntarily. The last was considered the least likely, given the girl's age and the absence of obvious family problems." On the third day after the disappearance, the authorities received their first concrete lead. A 65-year-old retiree, Ivo Meirelles, reported seeing a girl matching Mariana's description being led by a woman toward a silver car parked about 150 meters from the school. The girl didn't seem frightened, but she didn't show familiarity with the woman either, Ivone stated. Based on this testimony, the police created a composite sketch of the suspected kidnapper, a white woman between 35 and 40 years old, shoulder-length brown hair, approximately 1.65 m tall, wearing jeans and a red blouse. The sketch was widely publicized in the media and distributed throughout the state of Parana. Meanwhile, the Rodriguez family's life was turned completely upside down. Roberto and Elisa abandoned their professional activities to dedicate themselves exclusively to the search for their daughter. They created the Fundación Mariana Rodriguez, a nonprofit organization to assist in locating missing children. The case gained national attention when it was featured on the TV Globo program Linha de Rita in April 1998. Despite the extensive media coverage and police efforts, the following months brought no significant breakthroughs. The police investigated more than 200 reports and leads, all of which proved false or inconclusive. The silver car mentioned by the witness was never located, and no security camera managed to capture its license plate. A turning point in the investigation occurred in September 1998, 6 months after the disappearance. An employee at a gas station in Londrina, 380 kilometers from Curitiba, reported seeing a girl resembling Mariana in the company of a couple. According to the witness, the girl seemed frightened and had undergone changes in her appearance. Her hair, once long, was now short and dyed a darker color. Police were immediately dispatched to Londrina, but the couple and the child had already left the city. Through the station's security cameras, authorities were able to identify the license plate of the vehicle, a green Monza registered to Pedro Enrique Oliveira, a resident of Sao Paulo. When authorities reached the registered address, they discovered that Pedro had moved 3 months earlier without leaving a new address. In January 1999, nearly a year after the disappearance, the police managed to locate Pedro Enrique in Ribeirão Preto, in the interior of Sao Paulo. When questioned, he proved that he had been on a work trip at the time of the Londrina sighting. The child with him was his 9-year-old niece. DNA tests confirmed his version, and once again, the lead ended in a dead end. By March 1999, marking 1 year since the disappearance, the Mariana Rodriguez case had begun to grow cold. The headlines dwindled, reports became scarce, and although the police officially kept the case open, they redirected resources to other investigations. For Roberto and Elisa, however, the search never ceased. The years passed without concrete news about Mariana's whereabouts. Roberto and Elisa never gave up. The Mariana Rodriguez Foundation expanded its activities, becoming one of the leading organizations in Brazil in the fight against child disappearances. Every year, on the anniversary of Mariana's disappearance, they held a public act at Praça Santos Andrade in Curitiba, keeping alive the memory of their daughter and the hope of finding her. In 2008, 10 years after the disappearance, a new element emerged. Ana Clara Fernandez, Mariana's former classmate, went to the police with information she had kept to herself out of fear. According to her, in the weeks before the disappearance, Mariana had mentioned an aunt who always spoke to her at the school gate. At the time, I didn't give it much importance. I thought she was some relative or a family friend. Only later did I realize it could be relevant, but by then I was already afraid of getting involved, Ana Clara stated. This information, although late, opened a new line of investigation. The possibility that the kidnapping had been planned in advance, with the abductor establishing a bond of trust with the child, became increasingly plausible. Police Chief Jose Ricardo Alves, who had taken over the case in 2005, reopened specific inquiries based on this new lead. In 2010, technology brought new hope with the advancement of digital age regression programs. The Parana Forensic Police produced images showing how Mariana might look at 20 years old. The new images were widely shared on social media, which was just beginning to grow popular in Brazil. In 2013, 15 years after the disappearance, another significant development occurred. A 23-year-old woman from Fortaleza, Sarah, went to the local authorities claiming she had doubts about her own identity. Fernanda Lima said that since adolescence she had suspected she had been illegally adopted, as she bore no physical resemblance to her supposed parents and did not possess her original birth certificate, only a second copy issued when she was 10. DNA testing proved that Fernanda was not Mariana, but the case raised suspicions about a possible illegal adoption network operating between the southern and northeastern states of Brazil. From this lead, the federal police launched Operation Nursery, investigating clandestine adoption clinics. In 2015, the operation resulted in the dismantling of a criminal ring that had been active since the 1990s in the kidnapping of children for illegal adoption. 3 doctors, 2 lawyers, and 5 intermediaries were arrested. Although Mariana's case was not directly linked to this ring, the operation exposed the modus operandi of criminal groups specializing in child disappearances. In 2016, Roberto and Elisa's DNA was entered into the National Genetic Profile Database, enabling automatic cross-referencing with samples collected throughout the country. Unfortunately, this tool has not yet produced any matches. Leave a comment. Never give up on the truth if you believe that all the missing deserve to be found. On March 12, 2018, the eve of the 20th anniversary of Mariana's disappearance, an extraordinary event shook the Rodriguez family. At 10:37 p.m., Roberto received a call from an unknown number. When he answered, there was only silence for a few seconds, followed by a female voice that said, "Dad, it's me. I'm alive." Roberto, who had received dozens of cruel prank calls over the years, initially thought it was another tasteless joke, but something in that voice made him tremble. It was as if time had not passed. Even as an adult, there was something in the voice, in the way of speaking. "It was my daughter's voice," he later declared. The call lasted only 27 seconds. After briefly identifying herself, the woman said, "I can't talk anymore. Don't look for me. They're watching me." Then she hung up. Roberto immediately contacted the police. The number registered on his phone belonged to a prepaid cell phone activated the day before in Salvador, Bahia. By court order, the phone company provided the approximate location of the tower used in the call, an area in the Rio Vermelho neighborhood, a tourist district of Salvador. The case, which had been relatively forgotten by the national media, returned with full force to the headlines. After 20 years, father receives call from missing daughter. Similar headlines dominated newspapers, websites, and TV news programs. The entire country followed the unfolding events in shock. A federal police team, together with the civil police of Bahia, was assigned to the investigation in Salvador. The audio of the call was submitted to forensic voice analysis. Although there were no recordings of Mariana's childhood voice for direct comparison, forensic techniques made it possible to identify vocal patterns consistent with those of Roberto and Elisa's biological daughter. Roberto and Elisa immediately traveled to Salvador. For 2 weeks, accompanied by investigators, they combed the Rio Vermelho neighborhood, showing the age progression images of Mariana. Dozens of witnesses were interviewed, security cameras analyzed, and businesses visited. No concrete lead emerged. On April 5, 2018, however, a waitress at the restaurant Batico Du Mar in Rio Vermelho recognized the possible Mariana as a frequent customer who always came accompanied by an older man. She seemed tense, spoke very little. The man always ordered for her, controlled everything. "I thought it was strange, but I assumed it was just a bad relationship," she said. The restaurant security cameras confirmed the couple's presence on 3 different occasions, the most recent on March 10th, 2 days before the call to Roberto. The image, although not perfectly clear, showed an astonishing resemblance to Mariana's digital age progression projection. The man with her appeared to be between 55 and 60 years old. The investigation now had a face, but still no identity. The federal police distributed the captured images to all hotels, inns, and businesses in Salvador. The operation, dubbed Operation Reunion, mobilized more than 100 agents. On April 8th, the first concrete result emerged. An employee of the Faro de Barra Hotel recognized a man as Carlos Alberto Mendez. He had stayed at the establishment between March 5th and 15th, accompanied by a woman he introduced as his daughter, Marina Mendez. The guest registration included documents that, once verified, turned out to be falsified. The pair had informed staff that they would be heading to Puerto Seguro after leaving Salvador. Teams were immediately dispatched to southern Bahia, while authorities alerted airports, bus stations, and ports. On April 12th, a taxi carrying a couple matching description was identified on the BA 001 highway near Trancoso. When police tried to approach, the vehicle sped up, triggering a chase. After 15 kilometers, the taxi was intercepted. The man attempted to flee on foot, but was captured. The woman remained in the vehicle, in a state of shock. The man was identified as Carlos Alberto Mendez da Costa, 58 years old, born in Recife, Pernambuco. He had a long criminal record for fraud, document forgery, and had served time for the corruption of minors between 1995 and 1997. The woman, who initially identified herself as Marina Mendez, carried no documents, appeared disoriented, and was extremely frightened. When Roberto and Elisa arrived at the scene hours later, the reunion was overwhelming. Even after 20 years, recognition was immediate and mutual. It was Mariana. Urgent DNA tests confirmed with 99% certainty that the 28-year-old woman was indeed Mariana Rodriguez, missing for exactly 20 years and 32 days. During subsequent interrogations, Carlos Alberto confessed to the kidnapping. According to him, he had planned the action for months, observing Mariana's routine and establishing prior contact to gain her trust. On the day of the disappearance, he convinced the girl to get into his car by promising a surprise. It would have been the perfect job, he claimed, if not for the phone call Mariana made. The story that emerged was even more complex and disturbing. Carlos Alberto was part of a child trafficking network operating in Brazil during the 1990s and 2000s. Unlike what was initially suspected, Mariana had not been handed over for illegal adoption. Carlos had kept her with him, raising her as his daughter in a relationship marked by psychological manipulation and abuse. In the early years, Carlos and Mariana moved constantly, living in more than 20 different cities across 5 Brazilian states. Using fake documents, he enrolled her in schools for short periods, never allowing her to form lasting bonds. As she grew up, Mariana was convinced that her biological parents had died and that Carlos was her only protector. The psychological captivity was reinforced by constant threats. He told me that if I tried to escape, bad people would find me and do terrible things, Mariana told investigators. Over time, I began to doubt my own childhood memories. He made me believe they were just fantasies. At age 15, Mariana attempted her first escape in Maceió. She was recaptured within hours, and as punishment, Carlos kept her isolated for months with no contact with the outside world. This cycle of control, isolation, and punishment would repeat itself many times over the years. What finally led Mariana to make the call after 20 years? I never completely forgot my past, she explained. There were flashes, recurring dreams. In January 2018, I saw a newspaper report about missing children with an age-progressed image of what I would look like today. It was like looking in the mirror. Something woke up inside me. For 2 months, Mariana secretly planned contact. She memorized the phone number shown in the report, the number of the Mariana Rodriguez Foundation, and waited for an opportunity. When Carlos went out for dinner with an associate, she grabbed a hidden cell phone and made the call. I didn't know if my father would still have that number, if he was still alive, if he would even remember me, she confessed. But I heard his voice and I knew immediately. It was him. Carlos Alberto was indicted for kidnapping, unlawful imprisonment, document forgery, psychological abuse, and other crimes. If convicted of all charges, he could serve up to 38 years in prison. Investigations continue to identify other members of the child trafficking network mentioned in his testimony. Mariana's return to the life stolen from her would not be simple. After 2 decades of psychological manipulation and isolation, the process of readjustment will require time, patience, and specialized treatment. In the first days after her rescue, Mariana alternated between moments of euphoria at being reunited with her biological parents and periods of deep anxiety and disorientation. It's like waking up from a 20-year nightmare, but at the same time it's terrifying, because everything I knew, even if it was a lie, was my reality, she explained in one of her first sessions with psychologist Dr. Claudia Montero, a trauma and reintegration specialist. Roberto and Elisa, who had preserved Mariana's bedroom exactly as it was on the day she disappeared, had to understand that their daughter was no longer the 8-year-old child they remembered.